The 70s didn't arrive quietly. They hit like a warm, electric wave. Loud guitars, bigger stages, and a wild, unfiltered spirit that still echoes today. By 1970, Deep Purple were playing like a band with something to prove. Their sound had weight to it, loud, unpolished, but full of purpose. You can feel that hunger in moments like this, when the room is small, the amps are too hot, and everyone's pushing a little harder than they probably should. Those early sparks would shape the heavier side of the decade. John Bonham never needed a spotlight. The drums did that for him. In 1970, he played with a kind of effortless force, no theatrics, just raw, physical sound. Zeppelin were growing fast, and he was the engine carrying all that momentum. Kids everywhere tried to copy him, but no one hit quite like Bonzo did. Derek and the Dominoes didn't last long, but the fire they caught in 1970 still hits you today. There's a tension in their playing, like the whole thing might come apart at any second. It was rough, emotional, and over too soon. And maybe that's why those sessions feel so powerful now, like a snapshot of something they couldn't keep forever. CCR had a way of sounding both tight and loose at the same time, and Fogerty's voice carried the whole operation. It didn't need polish. It had grit baked in. As rock pushed into louder directions, their swampy, straight-ahead drive remained a reminder of where so many younger bands were coming from. Those roots mattered. Fogerty in 1970 looked like a man caught between momentum and burnout. The songs kept coming, the shows got bigger, but the pressure inside the band was impossible to ignore. Still, that sharp, unmistakable voice carried across the country, shaping how a whole generation thought American rock should feel. The Stones' rhythm section in the early 70s didn't try to impress you. They just settled into a groove and let the rest of the band dance around it. Their sound wasn't clean, but it had weight and swagger, the kind you only get from years on the road. That easy confidence became part of the decade's DNA. During the exile years, the Stones weren't chasing perfection. They were chasing a feeling. Rooms were hot, cables were messy, and half the time no one knew if the take was the one. But that looseness gave the music a kind of heartbeat that couldn't be faked. It set a tone other bands quietly borrowed in the years that followed. Zeppelin in their early days had this mix of blues tradition and pure youthful arrogance. They didn't tiptoe around anything. They went straight for the walls with every riff. You can sense that spark here, before the stadiums and the mythology, when the band was still figuring out just how powerful they really were. A couple years later, Zeppelin were flying on their own jet, drifting from city to city like a traveling thunderstorm. The starship wasn't subtle, but neither was the decade. Even with all that excess around them, the band kept playing with the same urgency they had back when they were crammed in vans and cheap hotel rooms. By '72, Deep Purple sounded like a band that had finally grown into its own volume. The guitars screamed, the organs soared, and every show felt like a tightrope walk between control and chaos. That combination, big riffs and classical flourishes, left a mark on dozens of younger players coming up behind them. Red offered something softer in a decade built on volume. Their harmonies were warm, steady, almost soothing. Music for long drives and late nights. In the middle of all the noise, they proved there was still room for quiet moments, and fans leaned into that contrast. Zeppelin in '73 had become a force of nature on stage. Songs stretched into long, winding journeys, shifting with the mood of the night. No two shows felt exactly the same. You can almost hear that confidence here, a band at its peak, unafraid to take the scenic route through every riff they knew. Keith Richards, around 73, had the look of a man who lived exactly as hard as the music sounded. Loose shoulders, cigarette in hand, always moving, never quite still. His riffs didn't shout, they slithered, carrying the rough charm that kept the Stones grounded while everything around them seemed to spin. Plant and Jones backstage in '73 show a quieter moment inside a very loud life. Even offstage, there's a charge in the air, as if the show hasn't quite let go of them yet. Zeppelin lived in that space between calm and eruption, and these small pauses say just as much about the band as the big moments. Mick Jagger in France carried a certain sharpened focus. The chaos of the late '60s was behind him, and the band was settling into one of its strongest creative runs. There's a confidence in the way he holds himself here, the kind that comes from knowing the music is hitting exactly where it needs to. The Eagles in '73 were shaping a sound that felt like open sky, easy, warm, and wide as the highways they sang about. Their harmonies didn't push, they drifted. And for millions of Americans, that mix of calm and clarity became the soundtrack of long drives and even longer memories. By '74, David Gilmour carried a kind of calm intensity that set Pink Floyd apart. He didn't rush anything. Every note had room to breathe. Every bend felt like a quiet confession. The band was heading into deeper, more atmospheric territory, and Gilmour was the steady hand guiding them there. You can sense that shift beginning right here. Carlos Santana in '74 played like music was a living thing moving through him. His tone had warmth and fire, but also a softness that made every line feel personal. While many bands pushed for volume, Santana chased feel, letting Latin rhythms and blues phrasing mingle until they became something unmistakably his. Those years defined that blend. Thin Lizzy in '74 had a swagger that didn't come from stadiums. It came from the streets. Phil Lynott carried the band with a poet's heart and a fighter's edge, and the music showed it. Their sound was sharp, melodic, and just gritty enough to stand apart. They were still climbing, but the confidence was already there. Another moment with Thin Lizzy, but from a different angle, quieter, more focused. You can see the discipline underneath the attitude. The hours spent sharpening parts until they locked together just right. It was this mix of toughness and craft that carried them into the mid-'70s, where their signature twin guitar sound finally took full shape. Humble Pie in '73 had that ragged, soulful punch that couldn't be faked. Steve Marriott sang like he was pushing against the limits of his own lungs, and the band followed with the same intensity. Their music wasn't tidy. It was sweaty and alive, the kind that hit hardest in small rooms filled with too many people. Deep Purple's Mark II lineup had become a well-oiled beast by the early 70s. They balanced precision with pure force, switching from delicate runs to roaring riffs without losing control. Even in their quieter moments, you could sense the power waiting underneath. An engine always idling high, ready to jump the moment the count-in started. By the late 60s, Ricky Nelson was carrying the weight of a career that had already seen more twists than most musicians get in a lifetime. He wasn't chasing trends anymore. He was carving out his own space, leaning into country rock before it had a proper name. That shift would end up influencing more of the coming decade than people realize. This earlier Stones moment from '66 shows the band before the chaos fully set in. There's a sharpness, a clean edge to them. Still young, still figuring out how far they could push things. It's a good reminder that the wild, sprawling sound of their 70s work didn't appear overnight. It grew from scenes exactly like this. Robert Plant, around 73, had a presence that didn't need volume to be felt. Even standing still, he radiated that golden god mystique, equal parts confidence and curiosity. Zeppelin were in a creative sweet spot, and Plant's voice, high, agile, and full of color, was at the heart of it. These were the years when everything clicked. The Doors in '66 were a different kind of storm. Moody, unpredictable, and charged with a strange electricity. Before the massive fame, before the mythology, they were just four young musicians experimenting with shadows and silence. Their darker edge stood in stark contrast to the bright explosion of rock that would dominate the early 70s. Boz Scaggs in '74 carried himself with the ease of someone who knew exactly what lane he belonged in. His voice slid between soul and pop without breaking stride, and his guitar work had a warmth that felt lived in. Those mid-'70s sessions marked the moment he refined his sound into something sleek and unmistakable. Led Zeppelin at the French Chateau in '69 still had a raw, restless spark. The setting may look calm, but the band was anything but. They were experimenting non-stop, pulling ideas from blues, folk, and whatever else caught their ear. That curiosity became the backbone of their early 70s evolution, long before the spectacle took over. Jimmy Page in 1970 had the focused look of a man juggling 1,000 musical ideas at once. He wasn't just playing guitar, he was shaping the entire sonic world the band lived in. From riffs to arrangements to tiny production details, Page pulled the strings with a quiet intensity that defined Zeppelin's rise. Pink Floyd at Hyde Park in 1970 were stepping into a new phase. Bigger stages, longer songs, and a growing sense of atmosphere. They weren't trying to be the loudest band around. They were carving out a space where sound could swallow you whole. That shift set them apart as the decade opened up. And as the 70s continued to unfold, every one of these moments, loud or quiet, polished or rough, wove together into the sound of a decade that refused to sit still. These were the years when rock stretched, shifted, and found new shapes that still echo through time. For all the noise and color of the 70s, it's the small, honest moments that linger the longest. And that wraps the first chapter of this journey. Part 2 is on the way, with more rare photos and stories from the road. If this brought back a memory or two, feel free to like the video, subscribe, and share your story in the comments.